Hello.
So welcome everyone to, this is our Crystal Matrix talk show. We do it quarterly, and this is January already, 2019. So we are doing our annual predictions. I'm going to introduce, I'm Patricia Bankins, I'm the owner of the Crystal Matrix, and you are?
I'm Richard Simon Kahn. I do astrology readings here at the Crystal Matrix.
And I'm Ayamanatara. I teach a bunch of classes and do channeled card readings here at the Crystal Matrix.
So we're missing Aru. We're sorry that you couldn't join us, but Aru, Nance Woodley wasn't able to join us, so it's just the three of us tonight. Though I'm sure we have plenty for you. So. I can, you want me to start? I'll just jump it off. Okay. I'm going to give you, first of all, just so you know, I work with Lord Melchizedek, and that's who I've been working with for these predictions this year. I'm going to move our lovely set decorating and do it like this, though. Overall, what I'm looking at for 2019 right now is that this is a year of expansion. Thank you. Because last year was a year it felt so compressed. And what I mean by that, that compression, that sense of obligation and everything was kind of pushing together for us. A lot of what was happening in 2018 was releasing of karma and letting go of old beliefs, old patterns, old people, old relationships, old institutions. I mean, anything that has been in the past. That's what I was watching us let go of last year. It seemed like a very long year. So, but there was a lot of karmic release last year, and what's important, I think, to remember for this year, because this does happen once we're releasing things, is that sometimes what we're looking at, because our experiences here are not linear; they're actually circuitous. So what starts to happen is that sometimes something that we've already completed, that we've gone through, that is no longer connected to us, it's coming back around, and we're seeing it, but we're actually seeing it from a distance, and our nature is, oh my gosh, I haven't cleared that karma, so I'm going to grab onto it again. I'm saying, please this year, don't grab onto it. Just whatever it is, don't grab onto it. Just remember that it's a circuitous experience. So, one of the ways that I always think of that is, like if you were looking through a baby album, you know, and you're 37, and you see yourself at 9, you're not 9, okay? It's just not going to happen again, so don't try to go back there. That's an easy way to think of that one for me. So don't grab hold. The other thing is, and this is just for my general, whatever you can think this year, or whatever you start to think, whatever your ideas are, you're automatically, it's going to loop you into choosing that. You have a choice of choosing or not choosing. If you choose it, it's an instantaneous manifestation. This kind of talks about the Abraham Hicks ideas of, you know, I can manifest what I choose to manifest. But this year, because things are accelerated, there's a lot of that expansion happens, but a lot of what also is happening here is we are instantly manifesting. And so my suggestion would be really careful about what you want to choose. Because what you think about, what you decide to choose, you are going to manifest. And that manifestation is, you know, it could come back and bite you. So be conscious, that's all. We're just, you know, you've worked really hard last year to release things so you can be conscious. Let's practice that. Does anyone want to talk? I can go politically, and then I can go on the earth.
Kind of
or do you want to
tap onto your
that's my
wrap up?
Okay, so I'm going to pass down. Thank you.
So yeah, part of what I was saying in 2018 was that as the old paradigm is dying, we were seeing echoes of that paradigm, and an echo is always distorted and it's always somewhat archetypal. And so we were having these extreme echoes of the old paradigm coming through, and it was disconcerting as hell. But you know, I mean, I know I was having the reaction of, didn't we move past this already? Haven't we evolved past this? And so, yes, we have, but there's these echoes that are happening, and because, like you said, when we see it come back around, we kind of grab it and move into it. People were seeing the echoes and stepping into that, thinking that it actually was a reality as opposed to just a distorted replay sort of a thing. And so that was super challenging. And I think that's where a lot of the hiccups happened in 2018. And God, I'm excited to stop doing that. Richard?
Well, this ties in astrologically how these energies are manifesting is, I would relate primarily to Jupiter, which is the planet that brings expansion. It urges us to grow, it brings us opportunities. And last year, Jupiter takes 1 year to go through a sign or a house, and Jupiter was in the sign Scorpio. It's a water sign. It has to do with emotions, deep emotions, and understanding our power and where we own our power and where we've given up our power. And Jupiter was bringing it into our awareness to understand what we're dealing with. And so, yeah, all this shadow stuff was coming up, and it was sticky, yucky stuff that we often had to deal with. And but it was just there for, also Jupiter is the teacher. It's there to help us grow and understand. So it wasn't a punishment, and it wasn't to attach to it.
Right.
It was just to understand it and to be able to release it, because now we've moved into, at the end of 2018, Jupiter shifted out of the water sign Scorpio into Sagittarius, fire energy. It's a completely different type of energy, and it's bringing us opportunity. It's about taking action. It's about putting ideas into manifestation. You know, it's very much about manifesting and the opportunities. So yeah, we're on a different wavelength. There are different things happening.
Yay!
Yes. Yeah, it's the feeling is much better. It's kind of like, yeah, I think collectively there was just a sigh of relief when Jupiter shifted, that it was kind of like, yeah, okay, something's different. I'm so glad. Let's do something. You know?
Everybody had that sign. Okay, so I'm going to go politically.
Okay.
I'm just going to read you the first line. This is from Melchizedek, has nothing to do with me, please. Okay. It says, the axe is about to fall. It reminds me of old times in the 1700s, but that's fine. Okay, what he says is, watch the hammer of change to be present for all of your politicians. There is no group that is free from exposure. This year, we're looking at the continued exposure and the clearing of group karma. A group karma as it's attached to institutions that have immersed themselves in the idea of dogma. So we're looking at churches, schools, politics. Anything that has, really, money is dogma, How we use money, how we see money is always about dogma. It's like that dogmatic thing. It wants more money. It wants more of whatever it is. So part of what the problem of the group is always, as it sits in this space, is that the group, in order to maintain its livelihood, will sacrifice the individual. And I think we've certainly seen that. So when the groups start to sacrifice the individual for restrictive ideas for a few, restrictive ideas and greed, again, for a few, the dogma becomes very dangerous and blinding to those that participate. In other words, if we're in one of those groups, you could have a lovely attitude, but if you're in part of the group, you are connected to the group karma and what the outcome of that group karma is going to be. So consider that. When you're thinking about, I want to join a group, where is that group taking you? Is it taking you into a space of karma, or into a state of consciousness, or is it giving you more levels of binding or being bound? Is it giving you more levels of restriction or exclusionary actions to a whole group just for the benefit of a few? And so this year, that's going to start to explode and break apart. That's what I see. I'm looking at probably May to September. I think that was you kind of have somewhere around there also. But that is, Melchizedek puts this binding, the dogmatic binding, he refers to it as the noose, karmic noose of strangulation.
Wow.
You know, he's got such a lovely use of the language. For the individual participants. So it's not just for the group as a whole, but for those that are participating in the group. And strangulation obviously is imminent death for those choosing to participate. So, you know, if you want to suffer what's happening with the group, go for it. Or you have an opportunity right now to step out of it and reapply who you are, how you think, where you want the benefits to be, and ask yourself whether you're in the groups to instill more judgment and condemnation, or if you're in a group to raise consciousness. And it should be a fun year politically. So, to you.
Do you want to add to that before
Sure.
I jump in astrologically? Because there's a lot astrologically here.
So just so you know, where I started with looking at 2019 is I pulled tarot cards, I looked at the numerology, I looked at a little astrology, sorry. And just in terms of like what the big patterns were and stuff. And numerologically, 2019 is about the death of the patriarchy, you know. And one of the things that Melchizedek said really resonated with me, because this is the year where people really need to start to become aware of their preconceptions that they hold. It's really important to start to become aware of where we've been blind to our position in relation to other people, and to certain parts of history, and to certain workings within the societal system, which I just sort of all lump under patriarchy. But, but yeah, if we don't get aware of where our stuff is in relation to that, it's gonna bite us hard, you know? And yeah, June to September looks like big change. I mean, one of my notes for June is change is inevitable, and it's going to be about cutting away that which no longer serves us. And September numerologically is always the culmination of the year, so it's always whatever the energy of the year is times, you know, cubed basically. And September has like some passion, some embodied intelligence, some collaboration, some creativity, but it's also, I mean, literally my numerological thing here was the last gasp of the patriarchy. So this summer is gonna be loud and it's gonna be hard. I'm expecting all of those economic structures to start crashing really hard. I mean, we're already kind of seeing it, but yeah, this is a really good time to take your money out of the stock market. I realize it's not a place where people really want to sell right now, and it's going to get worse. Yeah, there may be a little bit of a dip up, but I can't tell you when that is, so don't listen to me about, you know. But yeah, this year is going to have a lot of explosions. You know, a lot of stuff is going to get shattered, and I'm hoping it's mostly going to be, you know, the stuff that we're happy to be done with, you know. But don't get any on you. So,
well, all of this resonates astrologically because there are several things happening. Jupiter, as I mentioned earlier, is the planet of expansion. It's moved into Sagittarius, which is about getting the bigger picture. It's about understanding things from a broader point of view. It's connected with philosophy. It's connected with religion. It's connected with the law. And it's generally, on a positive side, all the planets and all the signs have their bright sides and they have their shadows. The bright side of Jupiter is it brings growth, it's awakening, it's creating, because it's in a fire sign, there's an exchange going on, there's more activity, we're taking action, people are being motivated to take more action.
Mm-hmm.
The shadow side is, and we're expanding our view, our understanding of what is going on. One of the interesting things about this year is that there's a number of planets that are in their home signs. And so Jupiter, for instance, moved into Sagittarius. Jupiter rules Sagittarius. It's got an extra oomph. We've got Saturn is going through Capricorn. Saturn rules Capricorn. It's got extra oomph. It's dealing with structure. It's dealing with governments, organizations, institutions, all of this. Who are some of the others? Neptune. Neptune has been going through Pisces. Neptune rules Pisces. It's about awakening our spirituality. It's about the sensitivity to what's going on the planet, to our own spiritual connections, and to all of life, to feeling that interconnectivity. And so there's a lot being awakened within us. And then one of the things that really sets this year apart is that the planet Uranus is the planet of revolutionary change. It brings transformation. It brings innovation. It brings new things. It wants to break the status quo and move through. And this is what's supporting this energy of the patriarchy just being put on the chopping block. You know, that's maybe where part of the axe is falling. But that energy is there about change. But Uranus takes 7 years to pass through one sign. And Uranus has been in the sign Aries for the last 7 years. And in March of this year, Uranus is going into the sign Taurus. It's moving out of Aries, which has been a fire sign. It's been awakening people around the world to a greater sense of individuality, to a greater desire for freedom, and to look at and understand what does it mean to have individual freedom. And it's been challenging us because the patriarchy, the way I see it is the patriarchal system has been in motion for 6,000 years or more, and it's reached its apex. And so it's like we're being challenged to see how the system has robbed us of our individuality and our freedom, and awakening us to reclaiming it. And so it's like Uranus is done with that part of the process, and now it's moving into the earth sign Taurus. And Taurus is about security, it's about structure, it's about values. It directly is connected to the economy, to banking and finance, and the whole global economy is going to undergo tremendous change over the course of the next 7 years. So whether Uranus comes in there and kind of all of a sudden it's like, pow, we see a change, or whether it gradually comes in and then things start shifting, we'll find out. But I think there's going to be a lot of change along the lines of what you guys are seeing and what the messages you're getting. And so that's going to bring, because Uranus is in an earth sign, it's dealing with the structure, it's dealing with the day-to-day stuff that our economy is built on. And it's very interesting. You know, one of the things that I've come to appreciate is that one aspect of the study of astrology is that it's about our evolution. It's about our evolution on the planet, individually and collectively. And so the planets are kind of like playing the music that we dance to as we grow and unfold and wake up to our potentials. And so Uranus making this shift is like saying, okay, the music is changing. The music is changing, and so there are going to be changes made in the material structure. And because Taurus has to do with values, this also ties into the planet Pluto, which is a really heavy-duty evolutionary planet. And Pluto is in the United States chart. It's in the second house of wealth, resources, and values, the house that Taurus naturally rules. So we've got this alignment happening of focus on this idea of the values. And one of the things that I think I don't know what the right word is, that we've been bestowed by the whole patriarchal system, the pinnacle of this. Okay, I'll edit that. The pinnacle of what has resulted from it is that we live in this global society that we look at money as the peak, the peak of the pyramid of what's important. And everything else, the way society is structured and the economy and everything else, everything else falls below the idea of money and profit. And it's not that there's anything wrong with the money or the profit, but when that's at the peak, then everything else gets sacrificed in order to achieve that. And that's, in terms of universal values, that's totally screwed up. And this is part of...
It's certainly out of balance.
It's out of balance, and this is where I see the resurgence of the goddess, the resurgence of the divine feminine is about caring. It's about valuing life. It's about valuing individuals and people and the two-leggeds, the four-leggeds, and all of the life on the planet and in the universe. And so we're in the process of waking up and making that change. And Uranus is the planet of change. It's bringing that. So we're entering into a very interesting period, and I think we're going to see a lot of change happening over this year. And one of the other things that you guys had also brought up was Jupiter moving into Sagittarius is got a lot of opportunity. It's awakening a lot. It's for those who are trying to open their minds and understand and get the bigger picture. Jupiter is really going to be supporting that. The shadow side of Jupiter is that Jupiter in Sagittarius especially is that Sagittarius can be, that energy can be very opinionated, and those who have Sagittarius has to do with one's beliefs to a certain degree, the philosophy, and so those who have fundamentalist ideas about things are going to get even more fundamental. They're going to believe even stronger in their point of view. So it's like those who have that kind of viewpoint are actually narrowing their perspective because that's how they're reacting to that energy. Whereas on the other side, people are expanding their view and seeing, yes, we need to change, we need to grow. And so it's a dynamic year. This is not going to be boring. That's one thing. This is not going to be a boring year, and it's for those who are. The other thing is that what both of you are bringing up too, is that for those who are seeking to awaken, to cultivate a deeper attunement with their own spirituality, with their connection with the universe, that we're going to be encouraged to do that more and to see the power of that in contrast to the stuff that's going on outwardly, to realize, okay, well that just exists. This whole system just exists because it's a bunch of ideas that everybody has bought into and reinforced and certain people have kept in conscious place. But it's just a bunch of ideas, and those ideas can be wiped away and replaced with a completely different set of ideas. And so the potential for change is huge, and I think we're just going through a process of reaching a tipping point where enough people are recognize that and are ready to say, yeah, let's change. I'm ready to see a better world. And so, it's an
Well, that would be
exciting
lovely, yes.
Great.
Yeah.
So one of the things that they're nattering at me about is, so whenever we are looking at our stuff, we come up against resistance and fear, right? Because that's how the ego operates. And one of the things that they're being very loud about is that when you come up against your resistance, when you come up against your fear, when your head starts screaming about, no, I don't want to look at that, bring it into your body, get out of your head, feel the sensations in your body and keep pulling your attention back into that until it clears, because that's one of the ways you can process your stuff is in the body. The head is not so good with that all the time, And you clear the energy of that, you clear the chemistry of that, and then you can start to think your way through it, and then you can do whatever writing you need to do, then you can do whatever it is you need to do. but until you get your head to stop screaming, you're going to be in a stuck place. And so the solution to that is to go into the body, and that is in fact a goddess practice. So yeah. So.
Okay. A couple of months ago, so we're in January, so I would say probably October, November, probably November. One of the channelings that I did with Spirit Speaks, that's what's on our website, thecrystalmatrix.com, was the discussion from Melchizedek about how we are inconsequential. And he's not saying that we're not important, because we are important. We're important to a great many things as well as individually. But we're inconsequential as to the evolution of the galactic consciousness. And we are inconsequential to the evolution of the planets that participate in galactic consciousness. And so I thought it was interesting when you said, you know, that the planets are kind of revolving around us, and according to Spirit, we're kind of evolving around the planets. And so part of that, and this was my third part that I have, was about the Earth herself. Because the planet itself, Earth, is evolving, and she's evolving because of the frequency or the vibration within the galactic whole, the consciousness of the galactic. That means all of the planets, all of the stars, all of the, you know, the other galactic universes. We are not alone, just in case anyone was wondering. It's true, we're not alone. And so she is incredibly powerful. This planet is incredibly powerful. Much more powerful than we are, either as individuals or as a group. And that means that anything that has been done to her, anything that we might decide to do to her, she can literally slough it off. Because she has been here for so much longer than we have. And she will be here for so much longer than we will be here, you know? And she is inevitable. We are not. And so she is molecularly more powerful than we are, and just much more ancient. And she has a greater importance, again, in the universe, the galactic universe, than we do as individuals. You know, I know that goes against human ego, but too bad. So, you know what I'm saying? Because we are just not that important. We might be important as individuals, but not in that huge collective. You want to?
Well, it's not even the human ego so much as very specifically, it's Christian doctrine, but it's Christian doctrine that has been misinterpreted, or Abrahamic doctrine that has been misinterpreted. This whole idea that we have dominion over is kind of ludicrous, really. You know, and when people talk about we're killing the planet, no, we're not killing the planet, we're killing ourselves.
Yes.
She's going to be fine,
She's fine,
but we may not, you know, live through that. So, anyway.
So one of the things, again, now that is important to consider and to try to put in your psyche for the year is that you're a guest here. You have no dominion. You are a guest, and you are then subject to the rules of that which you are a guest to. You know, so we are subject to the Earth's rules, the Earth's whims, the Earth's decrees. Her present decree and commitment is to grow, evolve, and cleanse. Not necessarily in that order. And so one of the things that I'm watching happening, and it's accelerating, and this was something that Saint Germain talked about probably 17, 18 years ago, and that is, don't worry about the earthquakes. We're from California, in case you were wondering. But we're from California, so we do have earthquake country. It's not the earthquakes he always said to watch, it was the volcanoes. Yeah. And so the volcanoes are the directive, or the forerunners of the growth and the change of the planet herself. And one of the things that Spirit has said now is, while we're watching the volcanoes, watch the air. Because it's not so much that earth moving or the earth changing as it is watch the air as it becomes thickened with ash. And they were very specific about that. What they also said is that we haven't, as humans, as collective here on the planet, we haven't given a lot of consideration to what will happen to the air as it gets more ash in it. We're worried about the ozone, correct. We're worried about the oceans, correct. But strangely enough, we breathe the air. You know, and we may be able to filter the water so it's not as deadly perhaps, but it's difficult to filter the air. So they're asking us, you know, they're not asking, but they're qualifying it to please watch what's happening in the air and be conscious of that. If you want to push for something, push for the air purification, because that's something that we're really going to have to watch for this year, because these will be the surface atmospheric changes that will really affect us and affect all of those that we know. And he said even though we may not be, you know, you as an individual may not be in imminent danger, be aware of how this is going to then start affecting the actual temperature and the air quality, something that I hadn't considered before this came through. And then I'll finish with this, because this was his closing line. Please remember, you are but guests passing through Earth on your way to your next adventure. So.
Well, and yeah, I love that. So it's not just the ash. When volcanoes go, I don't know if you've ever like paid much attention. I love volcanoes, so I pay attention all the time. Pele is like one of my favorites. But it's not just ash that comes into the atmosphere, it's sulfuric gas. That shit'll kill you real fast. You know, that's one of the reasons they evacuate such a large area around volcanoes when they go. It's not because they're worried about lava, because you can pretty much watch the lava coming and get out of its way. That sulfuric gas will poison you and kill you. But, you know, I love this idea that the way Melchizedek talks about, you know, us being guests here. From my point of view, the earth is an aspect of our higher self, you know? And so if we're doing things that don't sit well on the planet, like I said, she's gonna be fine, but we are doing ourselves spiritual damage as well as physical damage. And that's something to keep in mind. April is going to be really big for that, honestly. There's going to be some stuff going down in April that looks like we really have to pay attention to environmental concerns. You know, and with the current, you know, government shutdown, nothing's getting monitored right now. Nothing's being taken care of on that level. And the danger that that poses to us as individuals and to us as a population is really kind of horrific. I was going to go with terrifying, but I think horrific is more appropriate. And so it's up to us to make sure that things are getting taken care of. It's up to us to start creating the small companies and the small industries to do like air filtration, to do more alternative fuels, to do all of these things, to build guillotines. But the healing and the growth and the shift and the not participating in the goo of the old paradigm is going to happen in small things. It's not going to happen within larger groups. It has to start with small efforts. And I don't mean little efforts, I mean efforts within small groups.
And also, I'm going to throw in, it's also, you know, to create these spaces not for the sake of getting rich, but for the sake of helping one another.
Yeah.
And that's really the theme that I'm watching move forward, which is more goddess energy also.
Right.
It's not about what can I get out of this, but what can I give into it.
Sure, sure. And you know, it's the small groups working for the good of the whole. You know, we've lost sight in making money the top of the pyramid and in deifying money. We have made we've lost touch with the idea of what's best for the community. You know, it's not what's best for this guy over there, or what's best for that guy over there, or what's best for me. It's about what is going to benefit the most members of the community for the longest period of time. And we need to get back to that ethos, or we're not going to survive.
Well, it's like in all the indigenous cultures, that, especially in the Native Americans, there's the expression, all my relations.
Mm-hmm.
And this is acknowledging the oneness, that we're connected to all of life, that there's no part of it that's expendable, that's just there for our use and to be tossed away, that there's this reciprocity going on with everything. And this is also part of this Uranus in Taurus is, again, it's about the earth, and it's about climate, it's about our relationship with the earth, yeah, and awakening. Uranus is also known as the awakener, and so it's about us waking up to that. Another interesting thing that I ponder from time to time in terms of thinking of the planet and what the purpose of Earth is that in the last 150 years, the population has like quadrupled.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've gone from maybe a couple of billion people on the planet to almost 9 billion people, and that makes me think, God, where are all these souls coming from? And then what is it that is drawing everybody here at this time? And it's
nice.
Because there is an experience, there is something important happening on the planet, and for whatever reason, we've all been drawn back here to participate in that, and we're contributing to it and experiencing it. It's fascinating. So, welcome to 2019. Stay tuned.
So, if we have any questions from out in the audience, we'd love to take questions. If something piqued your interest, if you had a question about what we said, yes, Judy.
I just heard something on the radio coming over here that really disturbed me, and I don't know whether it was true or not, but they said something about the magnetic pull of the Earth is shifted like 30 miles this year.
And it's shifting 30
Which
miles a
seems
day.
like, that's huge.
Yes.
And they were talking about like navigation instruments like being a little bit off, or how we were gonna have to account for it. But my first thought was like physically, like that has to have some effect
Sure.
on all of us somehow.
Yeah, I actually posted about this yesterday, the day before. So yes, the magnetic north is shifting, and it's shifting in a way that they did not anticipate,
Mhm.
and at a much faster speed than they
Right.
anticipated.
Like 30 miles is a lot.
30 miles a day.
A day.
Yeah. Or 44 kilometers. I don't know if it's 33 miles a day or 30 miles a day. Math
That's
is not my-
math, yeah.
Yeah. Somebody else can figure that out. I know it's 44 kilometers a day. And they actually they weren't gonna redo the maps for the GPSs and stuff until like late next year, and they've had to redo them like as an emergency thing right now. And they were all supposed to get together like this week or last week to talk about that, all of the people who do that stuff. But they get together in the US to do that, and well, the government's shut down, so they have to wait on that.
But what does that mean?
Right, well, I don't know what it
It's
means.
a part of
but
the evolutionary process that the
Yeah,
planet's
yeah,
going
you
through.
know,
She's changing her perspective in the
Yeah.
universe.
She's shifting around.
It's a big deal.
But so I talk a lot on my blog about how solar activity affects us, because
Mhm.
we do have an electromagnetic field, and when the electromagnetic field of the Earth is affected, it affects us. And so I looked at, well, we're shifting the magnetic field of the planet. What is that doing to us? And yeah, we need to be doing a lot more what I call alignment work. So if you meditate, grounding and allowing yourself to shift with that energy, but also practicing a lot of self-care, like triple the amount of water you're drinking, seriously. Because it's really interesting. When solar activity happens, we get jangly. It's like anxious and not comfortable in your skin. This is making everybody depressed. Like the amount of depression I'm seeing across the board is really freaky. And I think, yeah, it goes with that Capricorn thing that's going on right now. But I really think it has to do with the magnetic field shifting. And so practicing a lot of self-care and realizing that you're having a chemical reaction that is not necessarily going to be solved by meds. I'm not anti-med, but this is not a med thing, but that it's an energetic thing, and doing things like really connecting to the planet. Spending a little bit of time every day with like your feet in some dirt. If you live in a snowy place, I'm sorry, maybe get a pan of dirt and stick your feet in it, you know, but doing things, playing with plants, and anything that really makes you feel grounded, anything that, you know, has that earth energy to it, will help us sort of readjust. Unplugging from electronics, because that messes up our magnetic field to begin with. Okay. And you know, this is speaking as someone who like is kind of glued to her phone all the time. And spending time each day dedicated to not electronics. You know, and breathing deeply. And if you have to do that in filtered air, okay, do that. You know, but. Really allowing yourself to be in touch with the natural rhythms of the planet and the natural rhythms of nature will help you be less affected by the dissonance that's happening in our magnetic field.
So when you're talking also about, like, you know, if you can't get into the ground or stand by a tree and playing with the house plants even, what I think is interesting, what I was watching as you said it, is that the organic substances or elements within the planet, so my house plant, the water, the air, molecularly, their vibration is changing as the axis is changing, as things are changing within the planet, because they're a part of organic element.
The crystals.
The crystals. Thank you, the crystals. But we're part of the organic element also. But we have set ourselves into the belief system of non-organic. So just to bring ourselves back to, you know, touching the rocks, you know, taking care of that house plant, and as we engage with that, I think that will help us to start the resonance, to see where it's actually vibrating.
And on my blog, there's like some step-by-step suggestions too. So Ayamanatara.com, I can get it to you afterwards.
You spell it the way it sounds.
Yeah, exactly.
Ayamanatara. Yes,
it's got
exactly.
6 A's in it, and you're probably fine. So.
Anything else? Any other questions? Any comments? Yes.
That happens, the government shutdown. It's just like what's happening now. Where, like, when, where, how's it gonna all?
Where's it taking us?
Where's it taking us? I mean, I know it's the patriarchy that we talked about, but it's
right.
like the practical part of it.
Yeah, the part of this, and that's where I was looking at when I was looking at the politics here, is that there are no right or wrong groups. There are only groups. And I think what we're seeing, or at least what I'm observing in watching this shutdown, is that we have one faction against another faction. You know, this group against this group. This group says that it's this group's fault. This group says that it's this group. And what, you know, they're saying here, what I'm looking at is, it's not about which group. There is no right group. There are only groups. So it's part of what it's trying to help us see right now. It's not, for me, it's not about how long does it last. It will last until we see what we're supposed to see. And I think that's the piece we always forget, you know. It's like, because we get locked into that 3D concept of, well, but if this group would only do this, then this would all correct itself and right itself. And that's not what it's about. It's that, can we become conscious of, you know, can we help someone that is being harmed by one of the groups? You know, it's us evolving as individuals and us opening our hearts and our minds and clearing out the belief system that is still locked into one of the groups. Whether it's the money group or the political group, whatever side, I don't care which side, they're all wrong right now. you know, or the religious groups, whatever that is, they're all wrong too. You know, it's great to be metaphysical because you're all wrong. Do you understand? It's like, but release the mind from one of the groups, so that we start to identify and react as an individual, so that we can each see one another as individuals. Then we shift this. You know, the shutdown will start to open up, because the government shutdown, we're talking about just this country. This is happening globally, you know, and because we're locked into which group is right or wrong, we're losing what is happening globally right now, and it is collectively, it's all happening all over the planet. So I think that to me is I respect the question, but I think it's a larger question.
Yeah, there's from the evolutionary standpoint, looking astrologically, there's a really fascinating thing going on with the United States, and that is that the planet Pluto in the United States birth chart is in the second house of wealth, the economy, values and things like that. And it takes Pluto 248 years to make one complete revolution. So we are in it's in the phase now where Pluto is coming and making a Pluto return. You may be familiar with the Saturn return. It happens every 30 years.
Right.
Yeah, but this is like every 248 years. So we are actually, from the standpoint of the United States, we are in an unprecedented astrological cycle. That this has never happened before in the history of the country, that Pluto has come back to its natal position. It isn't there yet. It's going to be sometime in 2020. But as it gets closer, it's bringing more things into focus. And so from an evolutionary point of view, what I see happening is that the United States has been a world leader in promoting whatever you want to call it, capitalism, or just this material consciousness, this material approach to life. And so one of the lessons that we're learning, or supposed to be learning, I suppose.
We're giving the benefit to learn.
Yes, we're getting the benefit, is about our values. It's not, like Patricia was saying, there's no group that's completely right or completely wrong. It's about understanding the values that we're giving, and whether those values are supportive of life, whether they are sustainable and respectful of life itself, and therefore can be perpetuated, or whether they're destructive. And that's the essence of Plutonian experience. It's about coming to the edge of life and death and seeing what really matters and choosing life or death.
Or not. Yeah.
But either way, it's, you know, metaphysically there is no difference, but that's part of our experience on this three-dimensional plane. And so that's what I see happening, is that it's about us collectively coming to understand and choosing values that are going to be sustainable. And since the United States has been a leader in creating the global economy that we're experiencing, the United States is probably going to be a leader in helping to dismantle it, and then to replace it with something that is going to be more effective and more sustainable. And if we're not, then some other country will be. But that's what I see is.
Or another planet will be. So.
Yeah, or another planet, right? I mean, where's everybody going to go after they're done here on Earth, right? All those 9 billion souls.
But yeah, I find that fascinating, because to me, when I look at if the United States is coming to that completion of cycle, we were born out of revolution. We were born out of being the rejects from everywhere else. The people who came to the United States were the rejects from everywhere else. We were the original refugees, you know. And so one
of the rebels.
Yeah. But we were rebellious enough that we had to leave.
And the oppressed.
Sure.
The people who came here were
well,
oppressed.
that's the refugee part of that.
Yeah.
But also, what I'm watching happening with I was a poli-sci major, just so you have a background on me. What I'm watching with our current foreign policy is that we are being returned to our infancy. We are giving away all of our power. We are losing all of our power through obstinateness. But so we are returning to our infancy, and I don't think that we're going to be the ones to help the rest of the world shift. The choice of every individual in this country and the government as a whole is going to be, do we want to be a part of the change, or do we want to get left behind? You know, I'm watching some of the other countries around the world really starting to step into that place of the good of the whole. And if we can notice that and acknowledge that and honor that and then emulate that, then we really have a chance to make something amazing in this country, or we can just get left behind and be a backwater. You know, we are turning into what we think of as a third world country right now. And if that's where we want to stay, okay, that's where we want to stay. It's a choice. You know, or we can be a leader for change, or at least a follower for change, but it's not going to be initiated by us. As much as I would like to think that it is, we no longer have that power.
No, I think that we're initiating the breakdown.
Sure. Oh, we've been initiating the breakdown for quite some time, you know. But there are countries and governments and institutions and NGOs and whatever that are operating on the base of the greatest good. And that is where we want to lend our efforts. That is where we want to lend our attention, so that we can hook into that energy of positive change, so that we can hook into the ability to be in that space and then pull other people with us, you know. The thing that's saddest to me about the this group versus this group versus this group kind of thing is that communication has ceased. We are no longer sharing of ideas, and that is the death of a nation right there.
Yes, it is.
That's the death of a society. And so being able to have dialogue where nobody's right and nobody's wrong, but we're talking about let's work towards a communal greatest good, it's what's going to save humans.
Right, so.
Again, Gaia's fine.
So getting back to the initial question then, you know, when does it end?
It's a really long answer, you guys have. By the way, I've never had such a long answer my entire life.
Do you feel important?
You're telling me how to make a watch. It's amazing.
But do you understand? It's super interesting.
No.
It's like, so there's no, the thing is that it can't just end because it's part of the process of the breakdown. Because everybody has to get pissed off here, if that's what it takes us to. Whatever it is that we need to create to make us conscious, we're gonna do it. And it could be unattractive.
Well, and I mean, all anger is the call to action. You know, I've been doing a lot of work. There's a bodhisattva of anger, and I keep saying this because I think it's so hysterical. But what the bodhisattva of anger asks us to do is to take that anger, because it's just power, and use it to blow through spiritual blocks. You know, and likewise, we can blow through economic blocks and compassion blocks and humanity blocks. And so when we all get angry, that can actually fuel our change as opposed to fueling, oh, I don't know, war and hatred. You know.
Anybody else want to try a question? Or
We have till tomorrow.
yeah.
Never mind. You talked about souls, like lost souls coming. Can you, I'm new to this world. I don't know what you mean. I don't know much about souls and things like that. Could you just elaborate more on that?
Yeah.
And like how that is something that happens?
Where should go?
Okay, we're going way beyond the three-dimensional world into the higher dimensions of consciousness, which ultimately lead to what we call spirit, which isn't about religion. It's simply that there is a level of consciousness where there's one consciousness. There's one. There's the universe is all contained. That there's no separation. And it's hard for us to conceive of this because on the three-dimensional plane, we sense separation. We experience separation and we experience duality. But this is only on this plane.
Mm-hmm.
And when we go beyond into the higher dimensions, those limitations don't exist because that's only part of the three-dimensional world. So it's like if you wanted to think of that as like a balloon or a basket hanging below a huge gondola or something like that that's the rest of the universe. That's what the three-dimensional world is like. It's got certain definition and certain laws that govern it that make it appear a certain way. So we experience separation. But when we begin tuning in with our natural self, with our own being, we begin to experience the unity. We realize there is no real separation between ourselves and anyone else or anything else. That we realize we are part of everything and everything is part of us. And ultimately that, according to the enlightened beings, that leads to a state where you just realize there is only one consciousness that we are all a part of. And so we can have our individual personality and expression, and yet it's not in contrast to somebody else or to anybody else. It's all part of a unified experience. I don't know if somebody else wants to.
I want to ask a question to that.
Okay, hold that question.
That
Because
was really
I don't
think
think
what-
that helped at all.
No, I'm
I
sorry.
think
Did that help
it was
enough?
brilliant, but that wasn't what you was asking. What I think you were asking was, you were talking about how many souls are here
Right.
and how they've come collectively. You made a statement that there are 9 billion souls or something that have come
Right.
here to gather for
Right.
this event. I think that was the question.
That was the
you-
main question, but that was my part two, so you nailed the part two.
Okay.
But yeah, what's that a little bit?
So in keeping with this, the collective, the individual souls, is that souls come to experience something specific at a particular time.
Okay.
So if we go with that tenet, then this 9 billion souls have come onto this planet. In other words, it's really crowded right now, not because we're fucking like rabbits, but well, there's that. But aside from that, all of these souls are here. We can edit whatever we want. Anyway, these souls are here because there's something exquisite and wonderful and exciting that is about to happen in the consciousness or the evolution of consciousness, and everyone's here to observe it. It's like the Super Bowl. It's the galactic Super Bowl, for God's sake.
It's a big party.
It is, and it's
like
popcorn time.
It's like
you know,
a
it's
message went
fabulous.
out in the ether. There is a happening on Earth, and souls are just coming. They're pouring in.
Like from Jupiter, Saturn, where
Exactly.
wherever it may be. So, but what's interesting about the population thing is that the U.S. population
It's
is
been
actually
dropping.
dropping.
People aren't replicating themselves anymore.
Yep. It's more interesting other places, if you look at it like that.
On the planet,
On
I
the
mean,
planet,
yeah.
uh-huh.
Oh, really, would you want to bring something into this?
No, and I didn't.
Exactly.
And you're welcome.
I'm with you on that one.
Helen.
So could you just go back a little bit into the planets and on an individual, like for all of us as an individual, what does it mean with all of these going into the, like Jupiter going into Sagittarius, a little bit more personal about an individual, what does that mean to us?
Okay.
And Uranus going in, because that's, for me, that's fascinating.
Okay, well, there's the collective impact because we are, one of the ways I like to explain about the planets, the influence of the planets, is that it's like they are an orchestra playing music.
I love that.
We don't hear it consciously, but they're playing and we are dancing, whether we're conscious of it or not. We're dancing to the music. And so when a planet changes signs, for instance, like Jupiter going into Sagittarius or Uranus going into Taurus, the song is changing, the music is changing, the beat might be different, the tones that are being played may change, and so the music is changing, and we respond to that consciously or unconsciously. We could recognize some of it, and a lot of it we don't, and so it affects us collectively, but it also affects us individually as well, because we each have our own individual purpose for being here. that we're learning certain things. This is my understanding, that we are learning certain things, and we come back, we reincarnate many times in order to perfect certain expressions of our nature. And so we respond to those planets according to how that relates to our own experience. And that may be positive. If we're conscious of it, we can use that energy. If we're not conscious of it, then sometimes we may react negatively to it. The music is neutral. The music isn't good or bad. The music is just music. It's just going. But from our perspective, we may react to it and think, oh, why is this happening? I don't like this, you know, and we have our own take on it when we could just as easily say, wow, this is so cool. Look I have an opportunity for this.
Shift.
And so it's about our consciousness filters our experience. And this is part of the awakening process that obviously you wouldn't be sitting here if you weren't pursuing the awakening, right?
Right. Well, there's so many planets moving from one to another right now that it's just like so much could be, I mean, it's bad.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what I do readings for, is to help people understand, okay, this is how the energies are showing up for you as an individual. This is how they're showing up to you in your life. We dialogue about it to see what they're experiencing and if it's showing up in a positive way or negative way, and then what are the opportunities and what are the challenges, and then you're more conscious of it, so you can move forward with more awareness, you know. And so that's the dance. That's
Look at my appointment.
So that being said, Richard can be reached at Golden Sun, is it Golden Dot
front
Sun?
desk.
Yeah. Call 323-644-7625 to contact Richard. But he does have a website, which is Golden Dot Sun, I believe.
Golden Sun -astrology.com. Golden Sun -astrology.
And Richard does individual readings and group readings and, yes.
Really cool classes.
Really cool classes, yes. So he has classes here also. And Natara, how can you be reached?
Probably at
And what do you do, by the way?
ayamanatara.com. What do I do? Well, yes, that's what I do. I teach a lot of classes here, which you can find on our website at thecrystalmatrix.com. You can also find my schedule and my contact information at ayamanatara.com, which is AYAMANATARA.com. We'll put it up on the screen of the video. But I teach a lot of classes. I do energetic coaching, spiritual coaching. I do shamanic healing. I do animal communication, and I do house clearing. I think that's all I do.
And for the moment, yes.
And this week.
When you're not busy.
Yeah, right. It's going to be some months of part time.
And so I think if you wanted, if anyone is interested in reaching any of us, you can just go to the Crystal Matrix website and click on our name. It will take you to one of our links and also show our bios and show the services that we do provide. And the Melchizedek predictions, if anyone wants to see them in black and white, you know, because the truth is always in the black part of the white. You can go to my Facebook page at Patricia Asheme Bankins, and this I've been posting this in increments. So I know that the overall has been posted. The political will go up, and then the Earth will go up, as well as our newsletter for this month's Melchizedek channeling, which is a little bit more on the galactic side. And I do crystal healings, Reiki healings, past life regression, and I do readings, and I teach classes here. So, you know, we're just a lovely, fun group. We love being here. We're so glad you joined us, both in person and
We love you too.
virtual. And we thank you. Thank you.